I've done my best and my worst, learned my lessons. No matter how hard my life would treat me, I'd always get right back up, never worry. 'Cause I got a million reasons to keep holding on. Yeah, I got all that it takes to win and overcome. What I got is just a feeling, but it's oh so strong. It goes on and on, on and on. There's something going on inside of me. I feel it growing stronger every beat. I never just believe in what I see, 'cause I can feel the energy, energy. Cause I can feel the energy, energy. I've met my demons one too many times. They taught me lessons
Happy birthday to Paul. Love audio production.
my mind would
Oh. Okay. Hey guys, I just hit the wrong button entirely. I actually don't know how that happened because I didn't go anywhere near that. But we're back.
I've been through heartaches, I've been to heaven. I've done my best and my worst, learned my lessons. No matter how hard my life would treat me, I'd always get right back up, never worry. 'Cause I got a million reasons to keep holding on. Yeah, I got all that it takes to win and overcome. What I got is just a feeling, but it's oh so strong. It goes on and on, on and on. There's something going on inside of me. I feel it growing stronger every beat. I never just believe in what I see, 'cause I can feel the energy, energy. Cause I can feel the energy, energy. I've met my demons one too many times. They taught me lows are what makes you feel so high. No matter how far my mind would wander, I'd always dare it to go even farther. 'Cause I got a million reasons to keep holding on. Yeah, I got all that it takes to win and overcome. What I got is just a feeling, but it's oh so strong. It goes on and on, on and on. There's something going on inside of me. I feel it growing stronger every beat. I never just believe in what I see, 'cause I can feel the energy, energy. The energy. I can feel it, I can feel it. 'Cause I can feel the energy, energy. I can feel it, yeah. I believe it, yeah. There's something going on inside of me. I feel it growing stronger every beat. I never just believe in what I see, 'cause I can feel the energy, energy. I can feel it, I feel it. 'Cause I can feel the energy,
Live virtual events. You want to run a successful live virtual event, but all of the things, the tech, what do you need? How do you get them to actually show up to your virtual event since they're not flying to go to the event and they're committed? How do you get them to be engaged? How do you deal with Zoom fatigue? I have brought on a very, very special guest for you today, the best of the best in the industry, to talk about all of this, running a successful virtual event and making it live, of course, because that's what we all talk about around here, right? And we're also going to be talking about making money from the event. One of the most important things too, right? So if you are new around here, please do type new in the comments. I would love, love, love to meet you. And if you are new, then you don't know me. Well, hello, I'm Laria Petrucci from Live Streaming Pros, where I help you create professional live video that is uniquely you. And I'm so thrilled to have you here with us today. If you have questions about live virtual events, be sure to drop them in the comments with a big Q in front of the question. That way my team can gather up those questions and I make sure that we don't miss anything. But we've got a packed day of training for you today. And, we're just gonna dive into all of this. So who's ready? Type me in the comments if you are ready to go. I do see Neil Hickson, who is new. Ron, Piyush, you are not new. You can't say you're new if you're not new. Seriously, all the wrong button presses today. What is happening over here on this end? That's going to get fixed. Let's hope. But it's live. And maybe one of the things that we can talk about with Blue is that the fact that when things go wrong, what do you do in your virtual event? Backup options? Because people might be paying for that event, right? So we'll get into all of those details. Now, in terms of introducing, I can't speak, my guest today, as I said, at Sage Events, Barry and Blue are the top of the top in the industry. You have seen events run by them for Tony Robbins, Dean Gracioso. I never say that right. Russell Brunson, Pete Vargas, Jeff Walker, Amy Porterfield, Stu McLaren, the list goes on and on. But in 2020, guess what happens? All of their events went away because those were physical events. And so they had to quickly transition to virtual events. And they worked really hard over the year to create a formula for success with live virtual events. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And now they're teaching you how to actually do it from home successfully. So by the way, they do have the virtual event on virtual events coming up next week. The link is in the description for that. Seriously, an amazing price. It's like, it's ridiculous. I thought it was gonna be like way out of my price range. I bought a ticket. I'll be there right with you. If you want to dig into all of the details and see a live virtual event done well and learn all of the details about how to actually do it yourself. So, who is ready to meet Blue? Thank you so very much for taking the time out. I know you just got done with a webinar yourself. So welcome, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. And I don't know what's going on with my internet today.
Okay.
I'm from our office, so things may be a little wonky.
Yeah, no, you
so
look good.
If so, I apologize. I obviously need a live streaming pro to give me a hand.
Well, I don't know. I keep hitting the wrong buttons, so something's going on today.
Listen, the buttons are buttons are difficult. Buttons are difficult. I think yesterday we were doing a training and I meant to go to a video and I went to a slide. And
Oh, no.
I didn't realize until 15 seconds in, 2 days before that, we started the event, and the first 30 seconds I didn't realize that we were on mute. Like, weird things happen,
It does.
especially when you don't have support behind the scenes.
Yes, for sure. And perhaps that is something that we can talk a little bit about later on is, the sport aspect, the things going wrong, because that is one of the biggest fears of virtual events. So real quickly, we all talk about Zoom fatigue, but what I loved, I heard you say, well, we don't believe in Zoom fatigue. Tell me about your philosophy with that.
Sure. So a lot of people right now are asking questions like, what do you do with Zoom fatigue? People are just, the world doesn't need yet another Zoom meeting. So is there, and then usually that question is followed up with, is there another platform that's better than Zoom? And the reality is, I can tell you with 100% certainty, Zoom fatigue is actually not real, right? What people actually have is what we call crappy video fatigue. Right. And I usually when I say it, I use a slightly different word, but for today's purposes, we'll just say, crappy video fatigue.
We all know what
they're-
you mean.
Right. Exactly. And what they're talking about is that Zoom angle, the Zoom look, I'm looking down at my, the camera that's on my MacBook or on my PC or whatever. It's looking up at me. It's looking up my nose. I have to look down at it. I just created 4 chins. Right. And, they haven't put any thought into video production, right? How does it look like? And the other thing that I want to say to you is Zoom is really just a video delivery mechanism, right? So Zoom fatigue is like saying people have Netflix fatigue. And, obviously that's not happening. Netflix is just a video delivery platform. And what's in the platform is highly produced video. And if you take the highly produced video and all the stuff that you guys are learning here through Live Streaming Pros and just transition it and put it into Zoom as your video delivery mechanism, all of a sudden it's a much different experience. Because when it all comes down to it, Zoom, that's all it is. It's video delivery. It just happens to be two-way. So that's how we look at it. And I can say, the second last event that we did this year, we had 5,000 people in attendance, and they were long days. They started between 9 in the morning and sometimes 11 o'clock in the morning, depending on how late we went the night before. But the earliest we ended was 1:30 in the morning.
Wow.
So long days. 5 or 6 total days.
Oh,
People were there the entire time. We didn't have drop off. So Zoom fatigue is not real.
that's crazy. That is insane. And speaking of your experience and the lessons learned over 2020 for you, I have some of the data here. So you did 36 virtual events and you generated $175 million in revenue.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
We were lucky. First off, we've been doing this for a long time,
Yeah.
right? We've been doing live events for 17 years, since 2004. My wife, Barry, started the business, and then I married up and joined it. And we've been helping mostly folks like the people that you mentioned who teach, they have great events. They teach tremendous content, but then people tend to want the next step. And what that next step looks like for a lot of them is a coaching program, maybe a mastermind program, or, a high ticket boot camp, something along those lines. So the majority of our clients generate revenue, not through ticket sales, but through what we call the high ticket offer. And in 2020, we generated over $175 million from live events. Or from virtual live events anyway. And it was a great year for them, and it turned out to be a great year in many ways for us as well.
That's awesome. And to be clear, like, to run a live virtual event, you don't need to run a high ticket offer either at that event. But you could not run anything and just have a ticket sale. You could run a low cost, like, you can do whatever works for your strategy. But a lot of your clients do that. So you had how many attendees go through the virtual experience?
Yeah, so from those 36 events, we had over 146,000 attendees. And these are attendees that we can actually count, registered attendees who actually showed up in Zoom. What we can't count, but we know is much higher than that, is the rooms where there were 2 people or 3 people or 4 people in attendance, because those only count as one from our perspective. So it's 146,000 people that we can count. The number that really just blows my mind is we had over 97 million viewer minutes over the course of 2020, starting in April, actually, because we didn't, we weren't doing this before. We were doing in person. So in 9 months, we had over 97 million viewer minutes.
Wow. Okay, so I see a lot of questions about tech. We're going to talk about the tech. You're a little geeky, we're a little geeky, so we're going to geek out a little bit about what it takes. But I also want to point out, guys, this is really important. running a live virtual event, while tech matters, it's not the only thing. And when I, found out about Barry and Blue, I fell in love with the strategy side of things as well as the tech. Now, because it's all about getting them to actually stick around and pay attention. So we'll dive into all of that as well. But when I look at, behind the scenes photos of your events and stuff, describe the crazy walls of, do we have a picture or something you might be able to share? Okay, perfect.
Yep. Yeah. So, when it comes down to it, we set up these stages a lot differently. We really look at them from the perspective of the hosts first and the audience second. And
Yeah, that's
I'll show you a
interesting.
couple of photos, assuming I press the right buttons. So this is a shot of Barry on one of our virtual stages. And you can see this particular stage has 13 televisions that she's standing in front of, each of which can obviously show different things. But one of the things that we're really focused on is actually showing the host the audience, so that, as speakers, oftentimes we are, we're fed by the attendees, right? As they nod their head, as they take notes, as they clap, as they interact with you. It's something that we really, as speakers, are fed by. And not having, that's the biggest challenge with most virtual platforms, is not having that visual feedback from the audience is really, really tough, which is one of the reasons that we pick.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I got that question so often in 2020 is like, how do I actually speak when I can't see people? So that's what I love about what you've done.
Yeah. And, this is a slightly bigger stage. This one is Dean Graziosi.
That's how you say it. I always screw up his name.
No worries. And he's on right now he's on a stage down in Florida. He can see about 1,500 people in front of him.
Crazy.
It is. This is a gentleman by the name of Devon Brown. It's a different angle of the exact same stage that Barry was on. This is a behind the scenes shot. So you can see in the far right hand side or far left hand side of that photo, that big circle, that's the stage that Dean was speaking on in that shot a couple of pictures beforehand. And then from the perspective of the audience, this is just cocktail hour at the end of the night. Barry and I having a drink, interacting with our
Best time of the day.
Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't need to be all that high tech, right? This can really be as simple as getting a television and a computer, because something along the lines of what you see in this shot, right? So I've got my camera that kind of is showing what I'm looking at. That big white screen in the middle, the webinar that I was just on, we did it on Zoom, and on that white screen, or on the screen that you see right in the middle of that picture, we had the Zoom gallery. So I was able to, Barry and I were able to interact with the attendees and actually talk to them and see when they were writing notes, right? Or if we said something that, sometimes we think we say something funny and nobody laughs, but sometimes you say something funny and people laugh. How do you interact and how do you react to that? And that's such a tremendous part of virtual events, especially if it's more than just 90 minutes. If you're going to like a 3-day event, being able to have that feedback from the audience is critical.
Yeah. And you guys, I mean, here at Live Streaming Pros, you know how to set up, a home studio that looks incredibly professional. But I'm kind of curious from your perspective, Blue, what kind of tech you suggest? Like, what are the most important things for a virtual event, and how does that maybe differ from a live stream?
So I have to tell you, the cool thing about what you guys are doing from a live stream perspective is you understand production, right? You understand lighting, you understand sound. You probably know about, easy ways to do multiple cameras, right? So, I mean, what we're using here, I've got a little stream deck that's, happens to be connected to, a big switcher. We're using a Blackmagic Atom Constellation, which is a $10,000 switcher.
Yeah.
But you 100% don't need something of that scale, right? A lot of your clients, or a lot of the people who follow you, are probably familiar with the Atom Mini, right? For $300, you can have a 4-input hardware switcher that then via USB-C connects to your Mac or to a PC, and all of a sudden you have a video and audio feed that's coming in that you can use in Zoom. You guys are probably using it with either Wirecast or OBS or Ecamm or any number of other.
Yeah, Ecamm and vMix around here. So yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, and with vMix and Ecamm, you can have multiple cameras coming in as individual sources. And with NDI and things like that, you can get more and more complicated. I tend to default to hardware before it hits Ecamm or before it hits OBS or Wirecast or whatever the case may be, and then using those particular those things, Ecamm or vMix, to actually then take it up a notch and use it for graphics. That's how we tend to bring in remote speakers, et cetera, et cetera. But generally speaking, if you know how to do what you guys are doing inside of, with Live Streaming Pros inside of Ecamm, you can then use Ecamm's virtual camera output, bring it into Zoom, and now all of a sudden couple your secondary output on your monitor with a 55-inch television that sits behind your camera, so that when you're looking forward at the camera, you can actually see your audience. And now all of a sudden you have an interactive experience. So I'm simplifying it a little bit, but the reality is, if you know how to do all of the multi-camera stuff already, instead of streaming out to Facebook Live or streaming out to YouTube or whatever video streaming platform you're using, bring that same video feed into Zoom. First off, you're going to eliminate Zoom fatigue because you guys are producing high quality video. You know how to light it, you know how to sound, or how to set up your audio. And, and then all of a sudden, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
If you have a lot of people at your live event, instead of just having one TV, you may decide to have two. And a simple way, super simple, to have multiple TVs, or even as many as, 10, 15 TVs, so that you can not just see 49 people, but have, 49 times however many TVs you have in front of you. You don't need to be running multiple meetings, although you can. You can have one meeting with, up to 1,000 people in it, and then connect multiple computers, right? And just low-end computers. You don't need a brand new, MacBook or brand new PC or whatever. You can use for a lot of our Zoom computers, we use Macs that are 5 years old. And, you connect them all to the same meeting, but you turn off audio and video on those computers that are the extra computers, and you just use them as gallery views, right? So your main computer, you put it, if you've ever been in a meeting where you have more than 50 people, or actually more than 25 by default, Zoom gives you multiple pages of galleries.
Yeah.
And for each TV, you just put it on a different page, so that as you're looking across your stage, and ideally, if you're looking across the stage, because you guys know what you have multiple cameras as you're kind of going across the stage. So you don't have a lot of shots like this where you're not actually looking at the camera. You have as much interactivity with the camera as possible while also interacting with your audience. So, people overcomplicate it. And so a lot of people don't have the benefit of the knowledge that you have as a result of everything you do with Live Streaming Pros. But because of that knowledge, you're a step ahead already. So to go from a live stream to a virtual interactive experience is like a half a step, and you're there.
Yeah. I love the overcomplicate, or don't overcomplicate it message there. And it is really simple. And you all already know a lot of what he was talking about, but at the same time, it is, I love that tip that you said, like all the different monitors with the different pages of the Zoom gallery. That makes a huge difference. So we have some questions coming in. We're gonna take questions here in a bit, guys. But if you want to see all of this in action, and if you want to learn all the nitty-gritty details, because we don't have time for all the nitty-gritty details right now, that link is in the description to the virtual event of all to overtake all virtual events. No.
Yeah, we're not really marketers, right? We're trying to figure out what the heck to name the event. And in the end, Barry and I said, well, it's a virtual event on virtual events, so let's call it the virtual event on virtual events. Emphasis on the, right?
Right.
But yeah, it usually gets short formed to TVE. And that's what it is.
And you guys, this is ridiculous. You're only charging $97 for this event. It's a 3-day event where you're actually going every step of the way through how to be successful across the board, from the tech to the strategy to getting people engaged. all of that. It's crazy.
Yeah, we are. So we're starting. Day one is all about strategy. So our name Sage actually stands for Strategic Advice for Growing Events. And unlike most event planners who, this is not to demean event planners in any way, shape, or form, but most event planners are order takers, right? So the host says to the event planner, "This is what I want to do," and the event planner says, "Cool," and they go and do it. What we tend to do is we come at it from an outcome-based approach, right? So, or strategy approach. So we say, what's your outcome? What are we trying to accomplish with the event? Did I just lose you?
You did. I'm going to put you full screen and go reset my capture card. Keep talking.
All right, cool. So I was like, either that or she's really holding still. So what winds up happening is we talk to the client about what their outcome is. And for most of our clients, it's enrollment into that next step. And then we reverse engineer everything from there. So we're going to start with the strategy approach. And one of the things that we've learned from the 36 events that we did this year is virtual and in-person events are very much the same, to the extent of we see them as about 80% the same, 20% different. The 20% comes down to obviously tech, and then also touch points. How do you interact with your attendees? And then the last thing that I know we're going to touch on a little bit today is how do you get your attendees to show up? Because for those of you who have done a live stream or maybe done a webinar, you know that you get like, let's say 1,000 people to sign up for your webinar, and then only 200 or 250 people actually show up. And you don't want that to be the case for your live events. How do you get more like 80 to 90% of your attendees to show up consistently for, long days, like live event days? They start at 11, they end at 9, and for multiple days. And that's a little bit about what we're going to be sharing. And a big key to that is the platform that we choose being Zoom Meeting, not Zoom Webinar. So we're going to talk about the strategy on day one, as well as a little bit about the tech stack. And then day two, it's about virtualize. So how do you take things that you love about virtual events and how do you actually implement them? How do you take things that you love about live in-person events and how do you virtualize them so that they work in a virtual environment, right? Oftentimes people think of this as return on investment or ROI. We tend to look at this as ROE, so return on experience. What is the experience that you're creating for your attendees, and where does that experience actually, translate into a return?
Yeah.
The other thing that we're going to cover on day two, which I think is one of the big questions that most people have about live events, is how do I fill it? So we're going to talk about how you fill your live events and what we're seeing that works the best. Day three is about actualize. So take everything that you learned and actually put an action plan together. And one of the key things there's two key things that we're really going to be diving deep on day three. One is content flow, right? Because a lot of people think 3 days, there's no way I have enough content for that. But you actually need a lot less content that you think you do, especially if you're having them be interactive experiences, which is key to them being successful. And then finally, timeline, right? How do you actually plan your year or plan your next event? The good news is we didn't actually have more than about 6 weeks for any of the events that we planned in 2020. And, we had a good amount of success. So you can actually be hosting your first or your next virtual event by the end of February.
That's awesome. Christopher is in, and that deserves some confetti. Congratulations, Christopher. I'll see you there because I'm going too. So that'll be great. Now, let's dive into some of those things. And you were talking about engagement and getting people to be engaged. And Andy said that's easy, giveaways. But it's not that simple. Probably that's part of it, but it's probably not that simple. Can you maybe dive into that a little?
Sure. So there's two things to remember. Most people, when they talk or when they ask that question, how do I keep the audience engaged? You actually have to reverse it, right? Because the first thing that you have to do is keep you engaged. Because if you're engaged, then your audience is likely to be more engaged. Whereas if you're not engaged, then your audience isn't going to be. So number one, Zoom is a platform. We've already talked about the gallery views that help you stay engaged with the audience. And because you guys have the tech background that you do on understanding multiple cameras and, vMix and Ecamm and all of the things, it's going to make that a little bit easier. The next thing that we do from an engagement perspective on site is we gamify the process pretty heavily. And I'll tell you, I never loved the term gamification. It always felt to me like gaming the system, or, it just felt like a marketer hook, right? It felt like 2-3 years ago, I couldn't open up my email without having 5 emails in my inbox saying, learn how to gamify the system, gamify the product, gamify. I'm like,
and honestly, like even taking it into a real world perspective, I had a Prius and I hated that thing because it was trying to gamify the experience of driving. And I was like, that doesn't work on me.
yeah, exactly. So I've constantly really just ignored gamification as a tool, but I sat down and I talked with a buddy of mine who really understands this and does it at a high level. I said, okay, give it to me. Explain this to me like I'm a child. Make me understand gamification in the easiest way possible. And he said to me this: gamification is simply rewarding people for taking the action you want them to take anyway. So I'm going to say that again. Gamification is rewarding people for taking the action you want them to take anyway. So for us, when we went virtual, we started thinking, okay, what are the actions we want them to take? Well, we want them to show up. All right, okay. So when we show up and we make things, I tend to go on the techie side. So we developed a point system. When people show up and they actually load the event dashboard or the event microsite or website, they get points. They get a little pop-up that says you just earned points for showing up. When they go interact with the sponsors, they get points. If we have an exercise on the website where we're asking them to fill out a form, they get points. If they share on social, they get points. And then not only do they see how many points they have, but we also then, create a little leaderboard and allow people to see what place they're in the leaderboard. And then we give them real prizes, right? So, the top 100 got something, the top 10 got something, and then the top person as well got something. And, for a lot of you that maybe we basically handwrite everything. We have a team of developers that are building our dashboards, but the first couple of events that we did it and it worked with WordPress and a plugin called GamiPress, Gami Press. Right. So you can gamify the entire system with that simple plugin. All of the things that I just mentioned, it can track for you. And, that also may be too much. You may be like, okay, I'm really great with my video production, but web development is not my thing.
Right.
Right. And if that's the case, you can really take a page out of what event planners have been doing for years, which is also rewarding people for taking actions they want them to take, like showing up on time. Right. We've all kind of gone to an event where, at the beginning of the event, the MC or the host comes up on stage. They've got a big fishbowl with names in them, or maybe raffle tickets that you got, half when you registered. And they pull a raffle ticket or they pull a name, and you have to be present to win, right? So you can do the exact same thing virtually, simply by saying at the end of the day, all right, take the next couple minutes, write down your top 3 takeaways from the day, your top 3 ahas. And then grab a phone, which I don't have one near me, but grab a phone, snap a selfie of it, post it on social with a hashtag. And then at the end of the day, you or a member of your team, or maybe a son, daughter, niece, or nephew that you've bribed for the weekend, goes in, they track the names of everybody who did that post. And then the next morning, they cut it up and they give you a fishbowl, and you pick a name and you reward those people with a prize. Again, you have to be present to win, and you just gamified the system. So lots of different ways that you can gamify. It doesn't have to be technical, but it keeps people engaged and it keeps them coming back. It has to be paired with great content.
Great content. And as Greg is saying, it has to be meaningful to the audience, like the reward itself, for sure.
For sure. Yes. Yeah. When we did, for our virtual event that we did last year, we didn't do anything. None of the prizes were cash-based, the big ones anyway. One of them was, they got an event. They actually got a call with myself or Barry. And it was their choice. And basically we hopped on a call for half an hour and answered any questions they had about virtual. The top 10 got like a hot seat or something along those lines. We scheduled a 2-hour call and we did, 5 or 10 hot seats back to back. And then the top 100 people got to sit and listen to that same call. And then we did Q&A at the end. And that was all valuable to the folks because they had been with us for 3 days. They still maybe had some questions because while we answered a lot, you guys know this, you uncover one layer of the onion and another question appears, right? So that was how we did it. And I thought it worked really, really well, and it continues to work for our clients as well.
This has been asked a few times. So the event that's coming up on Thursday.
Yeah, next Thursday
Right.
is for day one. You got it.
And it's a 3-day event. It's only $97. It's for the whole thing. The recording, I believe, is in the VIP or the all
It is,
access.
yeah. So why don't we just say this really, really quick?
Yeah.
There's 4 reasons that we've found that people actually show up, or what we call the 4 keys to getting people to actually show up. And the reality is the first key that we have is actually no recordings. Oops, wrong slide. See, we all have fat fingers.
I love that he's using the
so-
Stream Deck as well.
Yeah, exactly. So getting people to show up is interesting, but we found that there are 4 keys. The first one is no recordings. And here's the thing. You probably wouldn't go to a live event and, miss the first session, walk down to the, back table or go back to the team and say, hey, I slept in this morning. Can I get a recording of this morning's keynote? I missed it. Or if you did say that, the answer would probably be no. So we don't provide recordings typically. Now, there is an exception. You mentioned it. We have an all access ticket, and a lot of our clients do VIP tickets, and those do include the recordings. But
I signed
the key
up.
is nice, awesome. But the key is those recordings aren't delivered until 60 to 90 days after the event, right? Because we want you to show up live in person, because these events tend to build on each other, right? The information is additive. So that's one thing that we do. The other thing is something called the swag box. Oops, sorry about that.
Nope.
And the swag box is something that actually shows up in the mail when you register for the event. I actually happen to have one here. This is you can see the FedEx label on the back of it. This is what the one that we sent out last year looked like. This year's does look different. And then inside of it, you've got a whole bunch of, cool things that are, branded and also functional, right? They're part of the event. And we do this because we want reminders for the event that's coming up. So when a FedEx guy knocks on your door and, hands you a box the week of the event, it's really hard to forget that this happened. And I see Harry got his swag box last year. I hope you loved it. And this year's, I think, is going to be even better. So that's one reason that we do the swag box. The other is to make it tactile, right? Because virtual events are typically bits and bytes. They live on your screen. But it's nice to actually make it something that is something that people can feel and touch and interact with in person. And one of the side benefits is, if people get excited about it, they're probably going to post information on social and post themselves with the stuff that you have. These are just a few of the folks who posted pictures with ours last year. The third key to getting people to actually show up in person or show up live is the in-person check-in. Short version of what that translates to is the day before the event, we send out an email that says, come, for the in-person check-in process. It's a mandatory step. They click on the link, drives them into a Zoom meeting that is with a member of our team. That team member walks them through, some details about the event, kind of like when you register for a live event. Because remember, we're event people first. So everything that we do kind of takes on that same tone. And we're actually accomplishing 2 things with that in-person check-in that I think are important. The first thing is, of course, the warm embrace, the welcome to the event. This is when the event starts, and differentiating ourselves from webinars. The second thing that we're accomplishing is it's near impossible, and you guys know this from doing live streams, it's near impossible to start a live stream, to start a Zoom meeting, to start a virtual event without having technical challenges in that first 10 minutes. Right? There's always going to be somebody who can't get their camera to work. They can't find the mute button. Maybe they have to install the latest version of Zoom. And you can't actually
Or they're
not
chatting.
have those problems.
They're
right?
chatting in the chat room on the page of the video saying, where's the video?
Exactly. Right? And you can't not have that. You can't avoid it. But what we do is, because we're doing an in-person check-in the day before the event, we're moving the technical issues from the first day of the event to the day before. So when the event starts at 11 a.m. and you're ready to roll, you start and you have almost no issues. by doing that. So that's why we do it. And then, of course, the fourth thing that I mentioned, or we already talked about, is gamification, or what we call funification. So those are the four elements, just in a nutshell, that really help you to actually have your attendees show up and stay with you over the course of 3 full days.
I love all of that so much. I like the tweaks that you've made because you're coming from the actual event space and you're not just a live streamer doing a virtual event. Like it's a powerful switch in your brain. And I've seen a lot of questions. We're going to tackle questions here in just a second. I've seen a lot of questions about like, well, how many people do you need on a team to be able to do this? Guys, if you don't have a team, adapt what he teaches and bring it down to what you got. Work with what you got. Is that what you would say?
100%. And it also depends on how big your event's going to be, right?
Right.
I mean, we know this from a production standpoint. You're running your production solo. I'm doing the same thing, right? I'm, running it with the Stream Deck. So from a production perspective, going virtual event versus live stream, no major changes. And then the rest of it, you may not have a team member. I wouldn't recommend that you be the person that do the in-person check-in.
Right.
I'd sooner have you, bribe a neighborhood child who, is homeschooling, and just have them sit in the Zoom meeting, or maybe ask your spouse to help you out.
Yeah.
Or find a virtual assistant who can give you a hand. There's any number of options, even if you don't have a team, that you can use to make something like this happen.
All right. There's so much value still to come, guys, because he is... we're going to answer questions, but I wanted to find out who has gotten their ticket, who's going to join me on Thursday for the event. I know I saw a couple people, Greg and Sarah, say like they are already, they're booked during that time, which is why you can sign up for the all access and get those recordings. Now that won't come out immediately, but it will come to you, and it'll give you some time to prep yourself to be able to go through that content. I myself am going to be on the road on the 3rd day, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to attend the 3rd day, but I will be. I upgraded to the all access for that. So the link is in the description. It's pinned to the top of the comments. Christopher, I know you already got your confetti. Kat gets confetti. Woohoo!
Nice, Kat. Looking forward to having you there. Thank you for joining us.
All right, you guys, keep it coming. And you might get confetti as well. Okay, so you ready to answer some questions?
For sure. Let's do it. I'm in.
All right. Anthony says, how much does it cost for 25 people? I'm not sure, Anthony. I need you to clarify that question. Are you asking if you want to buy 25 tickets to Blue's event, or are you asking for something else? So clarify that one. And I assume if they want that many tickets, they can just email you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Dave wants to know, what's the make and model of that mic? Nice, rich sound.
Yeah, the mic that I'm looking at is a Heil, Heil. It's the PR40.
Yes, it's such a good mic.
And I love it. I actually have 2 here, because sometimes my wife talks with me, so we've got 2. I could, this would make me look like I'm doing some kind of old style press moment, but we're not doing
that. Let's see. Okay, Greg, I'm just going to give you confetti in advance. Oh, there the confetti is. Greg, you have confetti in advance. Don't leave this live stream just to purchase if you don't have another device on you. Big Promotions wants to know, how much is the VIP ticket?
Yeah, sure. So it's called All Access Big Promotions. And when you go to the page, you'll actually have to register for the event, which is $97. And then on the page after that, there's an all access upgrade option, which is an additional $197. It gives you the event recordings, which you have basically lifetime access to. And it also gives you 3 other things. Number 1 is priority registration. So we are going to be doing an in-person check-in, and there is a time set aside specifically for all access folks. Barry and I are doing a meet and greet as well as a networking segment the night before the event between, I think, 5 and 7. On night 0, so the night before the event. And then night 2, we're doing a cocktails and Q&A segment where after the event ends, Barry and I are going to crack a cocktail and hopefully you join us with that and just answer questions. Really just open Q&A for everybody who's all access. So those are the 4 things that you get with that, including the recordings.
Fantastic. This is a great question from Sarah. What are some other use cases? She's wondering if you could use it for a live auction.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, let's see if I can get to that slide really quickly. We have a client of ours, or actually somebody who attended the event last year, and she, after the event took place, did a live auction for 300 people. And let's see. This is her, actually.
Wait for it. The suspense is building.
Yeah,
Boom.
I know. Sorry. I
No,
had to
no,
find
no,
the slide,
no.
And then I had to make sure I pressed the right button.
I just like to add a little
Gladys
bit of,
Diaz- Yeah. Gladys Diaz did an event, and it was for 300 women, and it was a gala with a live auction. And this is actually her stage. So she went a little bit more technical,
Right.
but a couple of looks like about 16 televisions, maybe 12. But tons of folks on Zoom interacting, and she did a live auction, which works out really, really well. You have to find a way for them to actually raise their paddles. If you're gonna do something like that, make sure that you send them a paddle, right? Something that is like, I'd like to vote. Or I'd like to bid.
Yeah.
Or the other thing is there's a bunch of tools out there where you can create auctions online. So you can pair the virtual event with a website where you actually bid on the auction. So there's tools out there that can allow you to do that yourself, which is pretty cool.
Awesome. And what about vendors? We've in-person events, we have vendors and we have expos and we get to talk to people. What do you do for that?
Sure. So we're going to have a small number of sponsors really to sample so you can see what it looks like. Not that have actually, truthfully, none of them have actually paid Sage upfront for sponsorship, but we had as many as 40 exhibitors in a virtual sponsor hall. And how we do it is there's a page on the microsite that is where the attendees can interact with the sponsors. And each sponsor has a little bio, a logo, and then 2 things. One, a button to join their virtual booth. That button is really just a Zoom meeting, right? So you click on that and you can actually interact with the sponsors. And then the second one is a little button that is a multiple choice question that the sponsors typically give us about them. And then, of course, we gamify the process, right? So if you go to the sponsor page, you get points. If you click on any one of the booths and actually go in and interact with the sponsors, you get points. And then if you answer that multiple choice question correctly, which you can only find out the answer to by interacting with the sponsors, you also get points. So we're doing a couple of different things, and not just that's the method by which we set up our sponsors, but then how we then drive traffic is through the gamification engine to encourage people to actually go and interact.
Love that. The whole process, you guys got to check it out in the benefit of viewing the online event, the event for virtual events.
Virtual event on virtual events.
The virtual event on virtual events.
I swear, if we were better marketers, we would not do that, but it is what it is.
I think it's great. If you go there, you're going to see all of this in action, and you're going to be learning it at the same time, which is one of the best benefits of actually doing it. And I'm not sure if Blue, the online auction tools that you were talking about that were used. If not, it's okay, because Anne in the comments has some suggestions, so you guys can chat together. You don't have any off the top of your head, right?
I don't.
Okay,
I'm
that's
sorry.
totally
I
fine.
know
I didn't
I've
expect you
seen
would.
a couple of them. It's not something that we do as our primary business. So last time I looked into it, it was like 7 months ago, and there were a ton of great options.
Sure. All right, you guys chat and help each other out in the comments. Andy wants to know, we struggle with presenters using poor cameras, poor lighting, noisy audio from their home environment, and many presenters are hesitant to make improvements. Any advice on affecting change? So if you're going to have multiple presenters in your event, you're going to look amazing because you're here at Live Streaming Pros and you're going to be taking Blue's course. And then, but you're also going to have some other people who maybe aren't going to go through all of that and don't have the good tech set up. So any thoughts there?
Yeah, I've got a few. So this really comes down, sadly, this is going to come down to budget,
Yeah.
right? But it's not uncommon for us with some of our more important events that have a bigger budget to actually send out a little camera kit and a light kit. So we'll send out maybe a little DSLR with an on-camera microphone. And we, have them set it up with a wide angle lens, have them set it up about, 4 or 5 feet away from them tops, as well as a very simple light that is soft, right? So usually we try and send them a light that doesn't require them to assemble an actual softbox. So it has a soft shell already in it. So we're using LED panels typically to make that happen, or LED lights to make that happen. And then also we almost always provide.
Thank you so much, Einar, for the super sticker.
That's awesome. The other thing that we also provide is in that particular case, we'll provide usually some kind of device to take the camera into a computer, and we'll also go one step further and provide the computer. So literally they have everything that they need to be able to turn it on and go, and they'll have basic instructions on exactly how to do it. And then we also have our team film a short video on exactly how to set the entire thing up. And in the case, they have a link to the YouTube video or something along those lines so that they can do it. I have had clients who have purchased Facebook portals for their attendees, because Facebook portals recently got an upgrade that allow you to connect not just to Facebook calls, but actually to Zoom meetings. I'm not a huge fan of them, but it worked.
Yeah. I mean, it's helpful, especially if you as a speaker want to move around and actually act like you are on stage. Surely you've had people do something like that where you have that motion kind of going.
For sure. And we've also had clients where it's a really important speaker, and we've found a venue locally and actually had a cameraman show up and do the whole thing. So it really comes down to price. I will tell you this, though. I don't know how much longer this is going to last, but virtual audiences tend to be fairly forgiving, right? Especially if the majority of the presentation is well produced, right? Your video is well produced and you sound and look great. If you have one speaker that maybe is talking from their camera or from their computer rather than talking from a well-produced location, it's not the end of the world. We do try and have a pre-event call with them where we do simple things like, get them to raise their camera up, right? So they're looking at it, not looking down at it. If they don't have a professional light, we'll probably talk to them about just grabbing a house lamp and removing the shade, or having them face a window so that we can use natural light if the time makes sense. So those are little things that we do to try and make sure that it happens so that it sounds better. But virtual audiences are still fairly forgiving even after a year of doing this.
Yeah. Fiona is in, deserves some confetti, and Anthony is in, deserves some confetti. Nice. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. And the reason that I'm so excited about this and that I went to work to really bring Blue on so quickly, because I found out about this like yesterday. And I was like, this is exactly what you all need, because you have been asking over and over and over and over for the last 9 months to get some training on this specific topic. And what I love so much is that it's not just the tech, it's also the strategy to keep them engaged, to make sure they show up, and to provide an amazing experience, not only for you as the host, but also the audience themselves as well. So is there a tutorial to show you how to use the virtual confetti? Yes, I do have videos about that, and I'm sure the mods can link to that in the description. Okay, so, Joanna, again, it's about cost. Some people do make them return the camera and light after, but you may not.
Yeah, the Facebook portals tend to be giveaways.
Yeah.
But if you're going with a camera and a computer and a device to take in that camera, I mean, you're probably looking at $1,500 worth of gear at minimum. So those don't tend to be, you can keep it moments.
You're like, I want that back.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on who it is, right?
Yeah,
I mean, if you're
totally.
if you have a keynote presenter that you spent $20,000 to have them keynote your event, maybe you spend $700 and make sure that they have their setup right.
For
But
sure.
I'll also tell you those keynote presenters that do charge a little bit more have good setups at this point.
Yeah, they spent 2020 making sure that they were set up correctly, for sure.
Yeah, because it's their business.
Yeah. Sha-la-la-la-la Productions. I think the question you're asking is essentially about communication with your other presenters and the crew. I know that in the past events that we had run here at Live Streaming Pros, which we don't really do anymore, but like that communication while also streaming and putting out that into Zoom and all of that is a little tricky. So what are your suggestions there?
To communicate with your team on site?
Yeah, so not on site, through remote. Yeah.
Sure. So a lot of people are using, oh, crud.
I threw you for a loop.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what we use, and then
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what the platform is that a lot of other people are using that works really well. We have a ClearComm system that actually allows us to do IP-based comm systems, which is awesome. But you could use just Voxer, right, to have remote audio communication. Make sure you're using a headset if you're doing that. I'm still trying to remember the name of the platform.
Doesn't happen to be Unity, does it?
It's not, but I haven't used Unity, but we have a lot of people who are using Unity comms as a platform. If I had my phone in front of me, I have the app on it and I would grab it, but
That's okay.
I can't remember it all.
Wow, he's a proper live streamer and actually leaves his phone away from the desk. Like none of us do.
But there's, the reality is the ClearComm system's expensive, but it's fairly reliable. And the thing that that I love about the ClearComm system is it actually ties into the real ClearComm headsets.
Yeah.
Right. So with that ClearComm system, what we're doing, not only are we having the remote communication, but also, the cameraman who's local can have a headset on and talk to everybody. So it allows for a slightly different tie-in.
So we've had some questions about why you're using Zoom when there are so many other platforms out there for events, for virtual events. I think I know the answer, but
Yeah, well, and you're not wrong. When it comes to virtual events, there really are. It's funny, I actually have a slide for this. Nice. So there really are lots of options, right? You can use things like Bizaboo or Socio or Glisser or On24 or Boomset, Eventia, Wova, EventCore, Sococo, Brella, VFairs, Pathable. You can use Hopin. You can use AirMeet. I know, right? You can use Remo. And it really did feel like in 2020, every time you turned around, there was another one that just kind of popped up, right? And here's the reality with all of these. They're actually all essentially using the same tech, right? They're all using WebRTC, which is not all that different from what Ecamm's using. They're just wrapping it a little bit differently. The problem with all of those platforms is they don't allow you the magic that Zoom really does, which is the gallery view, right? The ability to actually see your other attendees, not just for them to see you, but for you to see them. Almost none of those platforms, at least at scale, allow you to see your attendees. They all allow you to chat with them, right? And some of them have a breakout feature where you have to go to another place, but none of them really have figured out what Zoom's figured out, which is that magical gallery view. And keep in mind, when we're talking about Zoom, we are actually talking specifically about Zoom meeting, not Zoom webinar.
It's important.
Okay, so we're not talking about Zoom webinar when we're talking about this. This is specifically Zoom meeting. So,
And I
There
think
you
that
go.
that's so very important from a presenter's standpoint. I know when I speak on stage, and I love speaking on stage, I love the energy of that audience. And we were talking about this at the beginning of the show, but that feedback is so vital to a presenter to make sure that you're on point. And like Gary Vee, one of the best speakers, he'll change his entire training based on what the audience is giving him, right? Their feedback makes him change his path along the way. And so like, how does he do that without that visual feedback? And then also from an attendee's perspective, I know I stay more engaged in events because I feel guilty about hitting that off-camera button. I don't know if anybody else is like me, but I'm a people pleaser, and I always like, okay, I'm going to just stay here a little bit longer. Yeah, so. Rob.
Yeah, we're on the same page there for sure.
Hudson is into the all access. You deserve some confetti. Oh, my audiences love that. Okay.
That's so fun.
Okay, just one more question. I'm looking for okay. I think we answered, we got a lot that we didn't answer, but okay. So I think this one is important. Andy, what software do you use for the agenda or the show flow, as I call it, the run of show? Do you use a software for that, or do you use Google Docs?
Yeah, so we have the software platforms that are out there. I actually like ShowFlow. It's SHOFLO, I believe.
Yeah.
I think it's showflow.tv. And I love it. We don't actually use it consistently for a couple of different reasons, but in the end, what we do for the most part is actually Excel or Google Sheets. But ShowFlow, if you're looking for something a little bit more robust, is a great platform. They, as you build out your run of show, they do little things like you can tell how much time is in there, and it'll auto calculate the start time of your next thing. They also have different views, right? So everybody who logs into the ShowFlow can actually create their own views. And unlike Google Sheets, or Office Online for Excel, where if one person changes the view, it changes for everybody, this ShowFlow changes for just you, which is nice. And then they also have a run of show view. So as you're kind of going through, it almost acts like a prompter of sorts. So it's a powerful tool. It can get expensive depending on how many events you're doing in a year, which is one of the reasons that we didn't find enough value for the amount of events that we're doing for the amount that we had to spend to use it. But if you're just doing 1 or 2 events a year, it's reasonable. And that's honestly, I have to tell you, that's actually one of the problems with most of the event platforms. They don't scale, right? So
You would think
Zoom,
that they would be built for scaling.
well, no, they're built to scale. They don't scale nicely from a price perspective.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Right. Whereas Zoom, we can have 1,000 people on a Zoom webinar or Zoom meeting, not webinar, Zoom meeting for $105, something like that a month. It's, a powerful tool. Whereas, and then if you want to have multiple meetings running simultaneously, and you guys are smart enough to figure out how to do that, you can actually, this is how we scaled up to 25,000 people for Tony Robbins, 30,000 plus for Eric Worre, all using Zoom meeting. We just had multiple meetings running simultaneously. And even that, I just need a bunch more Zoom licenses, which is a fraction of the price of some of the bigger, some of the other platforms out there. They get really expensive at scale.
All right, I gotta let you go. Unfortunately, we could talk about this all day, but the beautiful thing is that you will be answering these questions, and you will be diving into all of the details at the link that is in the description, pinned to the top of the comments. So click that, join me as an attendee at Blue's event so that we can learn all of this together, and we can learn how to get people to turn their cameras on, and we can learn all of the things together. So I would really invite you to join me for that experience. I'm very, very, very much looking forward to it, and I am an all access pass user, so check that out as well. Thank you so very, very much for joining me and giving of your time and knowledge.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And listen, even if we don't get to interact with those of you who are watching live at the virtual event on virtual events next weekend, I hope you take some of this information and actually apply it to your next virtual
Yes.
events, right?
Yes.
And that, because that was the goal. Although, of course, we would love to have you join us for only $97.
It's ridiculous. It's only 97. When you started talking about the price, I was like, it's going to be a $2,000. And then you were like, 197. Nope, 97. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah,
So
no, it may be a little ridiculous. And you may wonder why. You know, the reality is Barry and I'm sorry, I know we have to go, so I'll say this.
Oh,
really
no,
real
it's
quick.
your time. We'll take all your time that you want.
Well, so people often say, why are you doing this? And the reality is we feel like the more people are doing virtual events well, the more people want to do it more.
Yeah.
Right. And basically, the more that's out there doing it properly, the more people come to us saying, hey, can you produce our virtual event? So it's kind of a rising tide lifts all boats kind of moment. We often say that Tony Robbins last year did us an amazing service by charging, $400 minimum for his event, the big event that they did, because up until that point, it was, people were struggling with the concept of charging for virtual, right? So they were relatively inexpensive, 97, 197, maybe 397. But Tony comes along, gets 25,000, it was 23,000 and something people to, pay essentially $400. And all of a sudden it changes the game, right? Because people start, first off, all of those attendees got amazing value and they start realizing virtual events are live events, right? And we know that, we know that, but not everybody else does. So the more people doing this and doing it right, the higher value it's going to have, and the more people are really going to, see this as a real benefit. So there you go.
I love it. Thank you so much. Are you okay to dance this baby out? Just a quick 10-second dance.
Well, I mean, it's not going to be pretty, but I'm in. Let's do it.
All right. You guys
Right,
put your
so-
dancing shoes on. We're going to dance this baby out. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all at the event. Bye.